All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be sharing with you today how you can build a more efficient and modernized intake system in 2025, and in the process, save hundreds of hours for yourself and your admin team. Now, before we get started, let me present Dana. Dana Wine is a law firm owner, estate planning law firm owner based in South Carolina. We have been working with Dana on building out her intake system over the last few months. And before modernizing her system, Dana was spending nights and weekends making sure that nothing falls through the cracks in her CRM. Her team was also spending too much time on admin and was complaining that the process was quite complex and cumbersome. Now, after implementing some of the strategies, which we'll be showcasing today, she can now sleep tight at night, knowing that the system takes care of all her PNCs, spend the afternoons with the family, and her team can now spend less time on admin and actually enjoys using the system. Dana, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your firm?
Sure. Well, I am Dana Wine. I am a partner at Freeman Wine in Charleston, South Carolina. Our practice focuses primarily on estate planning and estate administration, although we have a couple other smaller practice areas in family law and bankruptcy that are incorporated as well. I've been an attorney for over 20 years, and I've had my own practice for about 16 of those years, and have been on a journey for many years, just trying to become efficient, improve things, and manage the growth that we've had. And have been glad to be able to connect with Martin, and I'm glad to be here today, and hopefully will be of help.
It's awesome to have you here, Dana. As we go through the webinar, we'll be actually showcasing what system we have built for Dana, and we'll also be commenting on their previous process and how it works now with the new system. Now, while we were working with Dana, I have also been invited to speak at a Wealth Council webinar talking about the range of automation opportunities that are available to attorneys, from intake to service delivery to then billing and review collection. Apart from that, I also talked at Gavel, again, about the document automation platform, about all the different possibilities. Now, what I have heard attendees say is that they would love to see how an actual system looks like in real life, an actual demo of an efficient intake system that is automated. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, why should you listen to me at all? About 4 years ago, I started a company called Automation for Lawyers. I was very excited about some of the automation tools that were coming onto the market back then, such as Zapier and Make.com. You have potentially heard about them, and wanted to help law firms implement them in their practices to reduce the admin load on the team. And now, after having worked with a multitude of firms, actually one of my clients for whom we have built out the CRM and the full case management system actually invited me to join their team full-time as a director of product and AI. I took that leap, and in about a year and a half of building out that system for them, we have managed to scale the firm from 6 to the more than 25 plus team members, while also making it the #1 rated law firm on Trustpilot in the region, with more than 4,200 5-star reviews. Now, apart from that, obviously also growing their revenue by 4.5x in that time period. Now, this was all possible because their tech, their systems did the work for them, which meant that they could scale much quickly. The team members that they were joining into the team needed much less training, and they were able to scale their customer experience, right? The great customer service that set them apart from other firms. And I'm sharing all of this with you today, not because I want to brag, maybe a little bit, but because if you're on this webinar, you're probably feeling the same way that I felt back then when joining this firm. That nagging sensation that you could be doing more with your firm. You can be growing faster, you can be onboarding your team members more quickly, and you can be providing a more efficient and better customer service. And all of this is possible with automation. Now, I wouldn't be able to help a larger number of clients just working full-time at one law firm. So that's why I decided to co-found Swans, where we now help law firms scale their operations with automated and efficient systems. And just testament to that, you may be familiar with the Facebook group Lawyer on the Beach. Here are just some examples of the law firm owners that we have helped implement some of the systems in their practices and what we have been able to achieve. Now, must say, before we go further, this won't be easy. If you want to make a significant change to how you've been doing things in your law firm, you'll need to make sure that you're ready to adapt, that you're ready to transform your practice. So what we will cover in today in this webinar is, first of all, I will explain why would you want a more efficient intake system in the first place? Why is it necessary? And really my goal for the webinar today would be that by the end of it, you have a clear set of actions, right, and ideas that you can start incorporating into your law firm from today. Apart from that, after covering the context for all of this, we'll be actually looking at a real-life case study of Lawmatics that we have built out for Dana, covering as well the 5-step roadmap to intake excellence, the 5 steps in the intake journey that you need to be focusing on and automating to improve this process. Apart from that, there will also be a bonus at the end. I will be talking about it in just a second. And also, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section in Zoom, and we'll be covering them at the end of the webinar. Now, as for the bonus, apart from getting the webinar recording so you can rewatch it, share it with your team as well, we'll also be providing you with an intake worksheet. Now, usually we only share it with our law firm partners, but this is a structured process for you to sit down with your team, answer those questions, and understand how you can improve your intake process already today in your law firm. To get both of those, you'll need to send a code word, which you'll find on the last slide in this presentation, to hello@swans.com. All right, let's jump in. And obviously, the system that we're going to be covering today is built on Lawmatics. We are not partnered with them, not affiliated to Lawmatics. I really just love the system and what it offers. But if you're not using Lawmatics, don't worry, because you may already have some of the systems in place or the applications in place to be able to build something out like this. Really then try to focus on the more general concept of how you can apply this at your law firm. Obviously, the specifics will be a bit different, right, for each system, but again, the general process applies. Please let me know in the chat who is using Lawmatics already, and if you're not using Lawmatics, what other CRM you're currently using. And by the way, if you have any questions regarding some of these other tools that you may be using, please feel free as well to then drop those questions in the Q&A, and we'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. All right, fantastic. Here is using Lawmatics, great. All right, Leadify, HubSpot. HubSpot is actually another great one. Provides a lot of automation opportunities. I love it. All right, let's get going. So before then actually showcasing the system, Dana, let's talk a bit more about your experience, right? Dana has experienced really great growth in her law firm, but she was struggling to process all the leads that were coming into her practice, right? Especially during some of those more busy periods of the year, such as the start of the year for estate planning firm, is for law firms. So Dana, what were the present challenges that you're experiencing in terms of your intake system before implementing some of these automations?
So I think the 2 biggest challenges that we had faced, number one was missed steps in the process, because the process was entirely manual. It required someone to be calling people back or emailing them back, and then manually sending an intake form, moving them within our intake pipeline with the previous software that we were using, which did not have full automation capabilities. And so periodically, and a lot more regularly than we would like, there was a step missed. So for example, maybe someone didn't get an intake form sent to them, and then as the attorney, I don't realize that until shortly before we're going to do an initial consult. The other big challenge we had was that we have a lot of people who contact you in estate planning where there's no deadline, there's no court case coming up, there's nothing pressing for them. It's different than litigation. And so they might reach out, and then we don't hear from them after we attempt to schedule them. And we did not have a good system of keeping track of those leads and encouraging them and staying in contact with them in order to get them to come in and meet with us. And so there's just a number of people who would call us or email us, and we'd say, would you like to schedule? We don't hear from them again, and then they're lost. And so we were able, through automation with Automatics, to automate the follow-up process, which allows us to retain more of these leads and actually convert them into clients.
I mean, circling back to that point of, having to complete all of those manual steps, the issue with that is not only the fact that your employees need actually to do that, right, which adds to the admin overhead, but then a lot of times then they need to be following these cumbersome SOPs, right? If you're onboarding somebody onto the team and trying to scale quickly, your law firm, or if somebody, for example, your intake person leaves, you need to hire somebody else, then it also takes more time for them to actually learn the system. So that's a very great point. Now, Dana, what have you done in the past to try to solve this issue?
So we have worked with other technology consultants in the past. And of course, I actually like technology, so there are some things I tried to do it on my own. And we really, despite hiring other consultants to help us try to improve these processes, we were never really successful. So we were spending a lot of time and money in making changes, trying to refine this. But because they really weren't listening to the needs of our specific firm and they weren't able to do higher level automations, it never worked. And so we ended up feeling like, okay, well, we've invested a lot of time and money to try to improve this process, and nothing is better. It still requires a high amount of human input and manual input from staff. And a lot of times it was people who they had an idea of what the process should be like, trying to cram our practice into that process. And all firms are individual. And so I think working with someone who's really going to actually listen to your needs of your practice, your prospective clients, your staff is extremely important when hiring someone and trying to work to automate and improve your processes.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of times that consultants try to put cookie cutter solutions, right, and put the firm in a box, right? But a lot of times, as you said, I mean, each law firm is individual. Even so, the intake process looks kind of similar, right, across all of them. The details on how each step is performed may differ, and obviously, then trying to put you in a box doesn't really work. What are some of the results that you achieve now with this new system?
Well, with the new system, I mean, there's so many numerous benefits. First of all, just being able to work with Martin and his team and have people who not only really listened to what our needs are and gave some advice, but also were really honest with us about limitations with software we were using before, to really think outside the box and create what I had dreamed up in my head. And that's been excellent. And now intake forms are sent automatically to anyone who schedules appointments. We are not relying on people to manually send those forms. And so they are not being missed like they used to be. And additionally, the leads that are coming in are being automatically followed up with by drip campaign sequences. And that is hugely helpful in making sure people don't fall through the cracks. And those people are actually scheduling appointments and engaging and becoming clients. However, with the area of law that I practice, there is a human connection that is important to many clients. And so we've actually been able to incorporate in not just emails, but also reminders to staff members at a certain point when it becomes necessary to actually pick up the phone and call people. And it allows us to make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. And our pipeline, our intake pipeline, is automatically maintained. People are moved through the process. So we're able to really quickly at a glance know we have an accurate idea of where clients are in the process of hiring our firm and consulting with us, which means it's a lot less to keep track of as someone like me who wants to make sure everything's going right all the time. We can have the confidence to know not only that the actual software is doing what it's supposed to do, but then also that we have the team at Swans to turn to if we have questions or need help or need to refine something or improve it or change it in some way, rather than being stuck trying to figure out, great, what do we do next? There's a problem here. So it's been great. It's been a really exciting transition.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Now, how many of you were in a similar position as Diana? How many of you have an abundance of leads coming in, but now you feel like you're stuck? Like your current system can't handle all of these leads. You don't have an overview of your process. You don't exactly know at which stage in the pipeline the matter is truly, right? Because unless you're updating it automatically, a lot of times potentially your stuff forgets to actually move them throughout the pipeline. You don't know whether each lead is getting the responses and the follow-ups that it needs to be receiving. The client information is not efficiently collected, meaning that you sometimes need to re-ask the client about the same information twice, which is simply unprofessional. Or actually now your team members need to be looking at multiple different systems to try to piece together the puzzle and understand the client situation. Your current CRM is not intuitive, right? Your team is complaining about it being hard to use. And ultimately, what a neglected intake system like that looks like is, and these are actual statistics based on studies of law firms in the US, a third of phone calls are never picked up, 64% of voicemails are never returned, and it takes on average 2 days to respond to PNC's message. Now, these are some horrendous statistics. If this would be any other industry, like, for example, e-commerce, then honestly, firms wouldn't have a chance to survive with some of these statistics. Now, your time is valuable. I cannot emphasize this enough. Your billable hour runs at around $500, $400, $600, but yet you are stuck doing admin tasks at $10 per hour. Now, how can you even run a business if you're stuck doing these admin tasks? Now, imagine this instead, right? You have a system where every lead is captured and tracked, independent of whether it's coming from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from some of your referral source, from your website, from Google Maps. The follow-ups are sent automatically by email, by SMS, maybe even by postal mail if you're dealing with more elderly population. Your team gets instant notifications about a new leads coming in to make sure that they can act fast on that. And all the client is collected accurately and in a single place, so your team has a full picture of the case when they're looking at the system. And as a result, you're converting more leads into paying clients while doing less work with the same team that you already have. With an efficient system, you get 51% more leads if you have your CRM set up properly, 20% more cases, and finally increased profit margins that you can then reinvest into running your business. Now, with all that being said, here are the 5 steps that we're going to be going through in this webinar and showing you how you can automate each one of them, going from initial inquiry to actually converting the client and adding them to your case management system. By the end of this, you'll have a clear overview of your pipeline, understanding where the matter is in each stage of the journey, with automations linked to each one of these transitions in this process, and also an ability to overview, understand how many matters you have in each stage, and what is the total value of those matters in that stage, so you can actually predict your revenue for the coming weeks and for the coming months. Now let's get started with the first point, the initial contact. Like, how do clients get in touch with your law firm? Now, Dana, can you briefly explain what was the process before when the client was reaching out to before implementing some of these automations?
So clients were getting in touch one of 3 ways. They were either calling, or they were emailing directly, or they were filling out a kind of generic website contact form. And from there, our staff member would have to manually create the matter. We were using Clio Grow previously, would have to manually create the matter in Clio Grow and then walk through a series of steps, making sure that we got them scheduled, intake form was sent. And that's how things were working before.
Right. Now, 50% of leads who hired a law firm, so 3% of leads hired a law firm who responds first. And actually, I can attest to the statistic myself. The other day, I reached out for personal issue to 4 law firms in my area. 2 of them never came back. One of them came back to me actually 2 days later, and only one of them sent me an automated "thank you for contacting us" message that actually provided some value because it explained the next steps. It explained a bit more about the issue I was facing. And I mean, I think it's clear which law firm I actually ended up hiring after that. So let's actually see how this looks like for Dana now. First step in the process is, again, this website contact us form where clients can fill out, PNC's potential new clients can fill out the information about their case. As soon as it happens, the matter is added into the Lomatics pipeline, as you can see over there, Michael Davidson. All the information, right, that was provided in that form is automatically synced to the matter, including, their contact details, the practice area that they have selected. And at the same time, an automatic notification is sent to Gina, the client services coordinator, with all the information about this potential new client, including the link then to the Lomatics matter, so they can immediately act upon that, right? And can reach out to the client fast after that. Apart from that, the PNC, right, also gets an automatic email saying, thank you for contacting us. Here are some of the next steps. Again, this is immediate after form submission, so they can already start seeing some engagement from the law firm. And in the case then that the PNC doesn't reach out back, Gina potentially tries to contact them, they don't pick up the phone, the lead automatically enters an email drip campaign, meaning that they get personalized notification messages on a specified cadence, let's say 3, 7, and then 10 days, prompting them and providing again some more information explaining about the firm's processes. Apart from that, they also get an SMS notifications in addition to these emails. And as Dana mentioned, the team is also then getting tasks created automatically inside of the CRM, inside of Lomatics, to follow up by phone after the first contact. The great thing as well is on the last try, right, on the third, let's say the 10th day, the team is also then prompted to potentially close the lead if they are not getting any response back from them. This ensures that the data in your CRM is actually clean, right, and is updated, and you make sure that you don't see still leads that you haven't talked to in 6 months in your main pipeline, so that your team members are not distracted by that. Another great feature of Lomatics specifically here is that any emails that are sent by the law firm or received from the PNC are automatically logged against that matter without having to manually log those emails, such as what can happen in some of these other CRMs. All of that is connected directly to your Gmail or Outlook, and these emails appear directly on the matter. Now, what are some of the benefits and outcomes of having a process like this? Now, first of all, leads feel prioritized with faster follow-ups. They receive an immediate response, preventing them from shopping around and reaching out to competitors. And finally, you no more need to manually enter information, right, and lose track of these inquiries. This is all handled on your behalf. Now, let's move on to the second point, the intake forms, right, collecting some basic information about the client. Now, Dana, can you explain a bit more how was the process before for collecting some of the basic information, such as address and some basic details about their inquiry, and running the first conflict check before?
So what was happening before is that an online intake form was being manually sent. And I think that we had maybe like the ability to have one reminder to fill out that form, but not multiple. And so we were running into a problem where, number one, they sometimes weren't sent the form because it was being manually done. But two, once they were sent the form, people were often just not completing it, especially when they've scheduled fairly, several weeks out to actually come in and meet with us. And we had problems getting those forms returned. Now, what is happening is we have a delay on when the intake form is sent, which is triggered by the scheduling of the initial consultation in Calendly. So Lomatics and Calendly are talking to each other. So that's automatically happening, but the delay is linked to how far in advance are they coming to meet with us so that we send the intake form at the right time. And then the clients are getting multiple reminders to fill out the intake form rather than just one. And that has helped us make sure that these forms are actually being filled out and that that information is available to us as attorneys before our initial consultation. Conflict checks, previously, it really was a matter of seeing who the prospective client was and their current spouse, and then manually running through our case management system. We've actually now created a way with Martin's help where we are gathering information for the prospective client, current spouse, and former spouses. And then Lawmatics is automatically running a conflict check against our database. So we get notified if there is a possible conflict. And we actually had the system pick up a potential conflict recently that we would never have picked up otherwise. And it was really not just exciting that that worked, but also extremely comforting as an attorney to know that we are going to be much more on top of making sure that we are doing the proper conflict checks and avoiding conflicts of interest. And not like, staying awake at night thinking, gosh, I think it's okay, but I don't know, and I have to remember everything. And that has been extremely comforting to know that that system works.
Love that, love that. So let's look at the process that we have created for Dana. So first of all, the process kickstarts with an internal new PNC form that the team members can fill out. Now, this internal form can be used both for creating a new lead. So for example, if somebody doesn't come in through the contact us page, they instead, let's say, phone in, right? The client services coordinator can use this form to enter all the basic information, or it can actually be used to update an existing lead, such, for example, the example here with Michael Davidson, right? We are updating the information about the PNC that we have received from the contact us page. And the great thing is all the information that we already have in the system is automatically pre-filled here on the form, right? And we're just ensuring that we complete all the rest of information, such as the address, where they have originally heard about us, and, for example, the lead attorney. Now, the great thing as well about these intake forms that we can build out is that they also contain conditional logic, right? So depending on what choice we made, for example, here with the marital status, right, an option appears then to enter information for the spouse. That ultimately means that both for the client and for the internal staff members, it is easier and faster to fill out this form because they don't need to remember, okay, which field I need to fill out now in this particular scenario. They are only shown the fields that they actually need to be filling out. Now, apart from that, all the information about, again, any relationships that the client has is also saved as an actual relationship in Lawmatics. And the great thing is, after the matter has been updated, those relationships can be used in automations, right? So for example, we can run the conflict check based on the client, spouse, and former spouses. Or for example, we can use the contact details of client 1 and client 2 to send them automated reminders about the case. Now, apart from that, the PDF of the form submission is also then saved on the case to make sure we have compliance and proper tracking of all the forms that have been submitted. And as soon as the form has been submitted, as Dana mentioned, the first conflict check is triggered. In this case, we are checking for the client, their spouse, and the former spouse. In case there are no conflicts found, the system automatically approves that request. And in case there are any issues, it will display any of the matches over here, and the team will be able to act accordingly and determine if it's actually an issue or not. And obviously, as well, just for avoidance of doubts, all of these names over here are for test cases, right? Obviously, we're not showing actual data of Dana's clients in here. Now, what are some of the outcomes, right, of building automation inside of these intake forms? First of all, no more incomplete information. Your CRM, your customer relationship management system, is only as useful as the data that you have in it. If your data is incomplete, if your data is inaccurate, then it's almost as good as having no CRM at all. Now, we don't have to request the same information multiple times from the client. Again, it's simple and professional. And the conflict checks, which a lot of times are quite painful to run, and you need to be checking multiple systems at the same time, are done automatically without, which ensures ultimately that they will be performed at all times. And again, any conflicts, potential conflicts will be found. Let's now move on to consultation scheduling, the next stage. Now, as Dana previously has mentioned, they already previously using Calendly, but at that point, their Calendly was not properly talking to their CRM, to ClearGrow. They had to be updated manually. Let's see what we have built out for Dana in here. Now, first of all, the client, or if it's client service coordinator, it can be both booked internally or externally, fills out all the required information about the PNC. They can choose the location, right, of that consult. In Dana's case, she's actually offering multiple location options, including the office, the phone call, or a Zoom meeting. And in addition, we are also collecting information about whether the PNC wants to be placed on a wait list for earlier appointment dates. Because a lot of times Dana is booked up several weeks in advance. And so if we then sync this information to the CRM, we can email any clients that potential new slots have been opened. Now, as soon as the Calendly has been booked, it now automatically moves the matter. So as you can see, Michael Davidson is now in the prospect stage. Let's now refresh the page. It is moved automatically to the consult schedule stage, ensuring again that we have accurate pipeline representation. And if we go into the matter, that appointment is created inside of Lomatics as well over here with all the information that have been provided by the client, such as the location and any other questions that have been answered. Now, what is the experience of the actual PNC on the other side, right? They get, first of all, a calendar invite to that particular date, again, with the ability to cancel or reschedule the appointment if they so require. And at the same time, they get a link to complete a questionnaire, right? Again, this is personalized dependent on the client's name and the practice area. And when they click to actually access the form, as previously, all of the information we already have about them in the system is automatically pre-filled, and they just need to figure out the rest of the questions. Now, this is great as well because a lot of times, potentially, if you're collecting information over the phone, your team members may have some spelling error inside of their name, their email address, etc. So this just ensures that all the information that you have in your system is verified actually by the PNC, by the client, and is accurate. Now, obviously, in this case, this is quite a longer questionnaire that they need to fill out. Some of the questions are optional again. And we also have conditional logic. So, for example, if they select that they have already some estate planning documents prepared, they can upload it in the memo here, which will again be synced to the matter automatically. Now, in case that the intake form is not filled out, automatic reminders, again, are sent out on a periodic basis, 3, 7, 10 days in the future, both by email and SMS, making sure that before the consultation, we have all the necessary data and we can move quickly with the case. Now, apart from that, in Dana's case, we have also designed that a few days later, after the consultation is booked, an additional email is sent out to the client automatically, educating them a bit more about the process of estate planning, providing them, let's say, a PDF guide of what to expect. The more you can educate your PNC right throughout this process, the less question your team will get down the line, which ultimately as well improves the client experience. And they can also fill out an additional form with some extra information. Again, it's optional about how do they want to design their estate planning service. Now, what are some of the outcomes of automating consultation scheduling? First of all, elimination of double bookings and scheduling conflicts. Now, this may not be an issue if you're running a small law firm, but as the team grows, as you start getting 10, 20, 30, 50 attorneys, it actually becomes quite a pain to be managing all of those calendars. Having a system that makes sure that all of your systems, right, are talking to each other, your case management system, your CRM, is all connected to a single calendar, and you have true visibility into everyone's availability is crucial. Especially again, as your team grows, people start, going on leave, right? Potentially somebody may be out of office. Having a system that manages that is extremely helpful. Apart from that, you get a more efficient distribution of consultations across the team members. Again, as your team grows, this becomes more important. Imagine you now hire a new intake person, right? And as they are being trained up, you want to ensure that they just get thrown into the deep end, right? And get 10 consultations booked on the same day. Maybe you want to slowly ramp them up and have, let's say, 2 per day in the first week, 4 per day in the second week, etc. With these systems, you can design them so that you achieve that result, right? So you slowly ramp the new team member up and can more properly manage the training process. And lastly, obviously, faster response time to potential clients, which again improves the client experience. Now, let's talk about post-consultation. So what happens after the consultation has been completed, specifically in terms of sending out the engagement agreement and following up on it? Dana, can you explain a bit what was the process before in terms of sending out engagement agreements?
Our engagement agreements were being manually sent out. So after we met with a client, it would be incumbent on the attorney to make sure our staff was told to send the engagement agreement, how much it needs to be for. And then they were sometimes receiving a reminder if they didn't sign it, but only one. And then if they didn't sign it, then there was no follow-up. There was no follow-up to try to move them forward as clients or be able to know that we needed to mark them as people who weren't going to hire us. And so we ended up with a pipeline full of people who had unsigned engagement agreements, or months had gone by, we hadn't heard anything from them, but they hadn't heard from us. And with no process or system to make sure that we were handling the post-consultation needs properly.
Now, let's actually see how this now looks like for Dana's firm. Now, after the consultation has been completed, or even during it, the attorney can go into the matter record and fill out this attorney post-initial consultation form. When they open it up, again, as previously mentioned, all the information that we have already in the system will be pre-filled, and the attorney will be able to make certain decisions about the matter, such as, for example, identifying the consultation outcome, right? Whether the client is ready to hire us and we need to send out the engagement agreement, or whether they're still unsure and we need to do some additional nurturing of the P&C. Now, depending on the practice area, right, that is chosen, there are several fields that appear and that are different for each practice area, right? So, for example, in this case, there is multiple engagement agreement variations for estate planning. We are also asking then for the scope, right, of the agreement, type of billing, payment option, etc. If we change now the practice area, this form is dynamic, right, which also makes it much easier to maintain because you don't have like 50 different forms for each practice area. The questions that appear here are now different, and we can fill it out depending again on the practice area that has been chosen. Now let's go back to the estate planning one. And again, as we fill it out, more questions may appear. For example, if there's an agreement with financial release, obviously we then need to list out the personal company names of the financial advisors, right? So that information then is required. If not, then that question disappears. Let's write out the scope, for example, a trust plan, the type of billing, whether it's flat fee, hourly, depending as well that obviously, more fields pop up. We can then choose the payment option, right? Whether we want an operating payment and in which attorney's account should it go to, whether we want a trust payment or no initial payment at all. Specify obviously the full fee of the case, any initial fee or trust payment required, and the attorney can also provide any additional notes that would be useful for the team. Now, as soon as this is submitted, and as you have seen, the process is extremely simple. This can be filled out literally minutes after the consultation. As soon as this is done, the engagement agreement is automatically generated and sent out to the P&C without any actual staff intervention, right? The matter is also then moved to the last stage in the pipeline, engagement agreement sent, so we can clearly see its stage, again, done without any manual input needed. And the client gets a personalized email, right? Dear Michael, thank you, for your trust. Please find here the agreement. The email is also personalized, right? So we have said, for example, the initial fee will be a flat fee, right? And it will be $2.5K. So we can see that information over here in the email. In addition to that, the payment link, right, where they need to make the payment is also personalized depending on which payment option has been chosen. This link will be different. And finally, the person has the ability to actually then sign the agreement, right? So let's open it up. Again, we have pulled in information from that form. So for example, the scope is the trust plan, as we have specified. And actually this whole section paragraph, so the whole section number 2, fees to be charged to by our office, is dependent on whether it's a flat fee or hourly, right? So in case it's hourly, the whole wording of the paragraph will be different. In this case, it's a flat fee, and we have specified obviously the quantities there with the 5,000 and 2,500 payable in advance. Now, as we go down, we can see that there's space for the client to sign. In case there will be 2 clients, then obviously there will be space for both of them to sign over here. And the second client would also then get their own separate notifications. Now, after the agreement has been sent out, again, automatic email and SMS reminders, as many as you want, right? If you want 10 reminders, we can set it up. and also notifications to the team, in this case with high priority, to follow up by phone if the engagement agreement hasn't yet been signed, to make sure that they don't have to manually go into the pipeline and check, each case of whether, they have been signed an engagement agreement in the past days or not. They can just go to the task list and they can clearly see everything that needs to be complete today without having to worry and having that extra overload, inside of their head, thinking about what next action to take. Now, here's how the automation looks like to actually generate this agreement. This is probably one of the more complex ones that we have created for Dana. And the reason that it looks quite scary is because there have been actually quite a lot of edge case scenarios that we are accounting for here, right? So whether it's one client or two client, what practice area is it? Whether it's flat fee or hourly, right? Whether an operating payment or trust payment is required. All of these conditions obviously then dictate how the engagement agreement will look like. And so this is not rocket science, but you need to put the attention, right, into properly setting things up. Because even if some piece of this is missing or is incorrectly set up, that will ultimately create errors in the system, and your team will not be able to trust the system for it to do its job, and potentially even have to do then cleanup work to make sure everything looks good. And that ultimately leads that potentially you're digging yourself a hole and actually creating more work for your system, for your admin team, rather than simplifying. So be careful with trying to DIY, these more complex automations. It can go wrong. Now, what are the outcomes of automating the post-consultation actions and engagement agreements? Now, first of all, faster engagement agreement generation as soon as a few minutes after the initial consultation, reduced payment delays and improved cash flow, so you can reinvest into the business, and obviously reduction in human errors because all of that information is structured, right? There is really no opportunity for human error. All the information is collected in that form, and all the information that is required is actually required on that form, right? So you have less compliance issues and less liability risks. Now, let's go to the last step in the process, new paying client. What happens after the engagement is signed? How do then we create it inside of our system? And so, Dana, can you explain a bit more the process that what you previously had after the engagement agreement would be signed?
So after the engagement agreement would be signed, then we would need to mark them as hired, sync the matter over to our practice management software, which is Clio, and make sure that we were moving them along as new clients. And we've been able to improve that by having some automations that welcome them to the practice as a client, and also gives them some information that was commonly being asked by people automatically. So they feel like, okay, I've just taken this big step. I'm now moving forward with my estate plan, and also give them an idea of what to expect moving forward, so that we weren't relying on either ourselves as attorneys or staff members to continue to answer the same questions, or to have prospective clients who really had no idea what was going to happen next.
Yeah, a lot of times I even hear firms that, they have been hired, right? And then the PNC, the client, doesn't get any notification for the next week, right? Which is obviously, quite crazy. The client doesn't really then know like what's going on, right? Whether they're actually moving forward with the service or not. So as soon as the engagement is signed, it is added automatically onto the matter. The doc is uploaded over there, and a task is created for the team to mark the matter as hired. Now, in this particular case, Dana wanted this extra manual step. It can also be configured for this process to be fully automatic if you so prefer. So as soon as the matter is converted, the client gets a welcome email sent to their inbox, again, notifying them about the next step, saying thank you for hiring our firm. And the matter is automatically as well synced to the case management system. In this case, Clio Manage. Right? So the matter is created, passing all the information about the relationships, about any custom fields that we had, such the fee amounts, setting the right responsible attorney, and also making sure that all of the information we have is correctly synced over, including, for example, the actual flat fee, right, and the billing type of the matter. A quirk of the Lomatics to Clio Manage native integration is that all of the matters that are created in Clio Manage are set as hourly matters, even if they're set as flat fee or contingency in Lomatics. we have actually been able to achieve this like last mile automation as well with a custom solution in make.com. So that also then puts this information into the system as well. The system done, and you know, the team members don't need to remember to do this manually. That's how it looks like. Nothing too complex in this case. Now, obviously, then as well, the matter is removed from the pipeline, right? So it doesn't then occupy the space. It's marked as hired, and we can then also run proper analytics on our hiring conversion based on the different marketing sources that are coming in, such as, you know, for example, your referral sources, organic SEO, Google Ads, etc. We can see how many leads are coming through those, how many clients have been converted, what is the conversion percentage, the revenue that came in, and the ROI, return on investment, we got in each one of those channels. Now, what are the outcomes of this? Well, faster transition from prospect to paying clients, reduction in the cooling off period where clients might reconsider working with your firm, and obviously as well reduce manual error in data flow. Now, I've talked about all of these 5 steps over here. With this automated systems, you can really convert 40% the clients, PNCs to clients 40% faster, a system that allows you, right, to do less work with the same teams that you already have, a system that can run whether it's 2 a.m., 2 p.m., whether it's Monday or a Sunday, so that your team can focus on higher value added tasks rather than being drowned in admin, and you can actually focus on growing your law firm. Now, do you realize how important an automated intake system is? And do you think that doing this instead of whatever you're doing is currently likely to yield to better results? Please drop your thoughts and comments in the chat. Now, while you're doing that, you may think, hey, our clients prefer the personal touch. And I hear you. Dana had the same concern before, but here's the truth. Automation doesn't replace the personal touch. Automation enhances it. By focusing on eliminating some of this admin and mundane tasks from your team, you allow your team to focus on those 10 to 20% of cases that need that extra level of attention. And trust me, again, we have built up a firm that was ranked #1 ranked on Trustpilot with more than 4,000 5-star reviews. This is the difference. Those 10 to 20% of clients that need the extra attention is the difference between getting a 5-star review or not getting one. And by automating the mundane tasks, you allow the team a space to be able to do this. Now, you may also think this sounds great, but my firm is different, right? I have tried automation in the past, it hasn't worked out. Again, Dana was also originally worried about this at the beginning. In fact, as well, working with other consultants in the past that haven't been able to provide a result. But the only way to handle your abundance of leads, right, in your current CRM is if you receive less leads. And obviously that's not great, right? The whole point of automation is to take work off your plate. So if your current CRM is complicated, it's not achieving that result, then you really haven't customized it properly. You haven't set it up properly. And this might sound very obvious, but set up your automation systems properly. The beautiful thing about automation, when done right, and I emphasize right, is that it takes work off your shoulders. Many of you have previously experienced working with other consultants which tried to put your law firm in the box and provide some cookie cutter solution to you. But here's the thing, every law firm is different, right? The process may look similar on the outside, but the specifics are different. And so you need a solution that will be customized to your specific needs. So please be careful when setting up these automation systems yourself or trying to adopt a cookie cutter solution for your firm. Now, think about where we started, right? We saw how Dana was struggling with manual processes and being overloaded with admin. We walked through the exact steps and systems that we have implemented for her in her practice. And most importantly, you've seen proof that these systems can actually work for your law firm. Now, what I've shown you is only part of the whole system, right? Imagine if every part in your law firm, right, every process from intake to onboarding to service delivery to the retention of the clients and review collection would be automated. Imagine how smooth the system would be, how data could flow from one point to the next. Your firm's admin department would be running on autopilot. And so with our short time today, obviously, attending one webinar and listening to me speak about this won't change by itself how your law firm works, right? You actually need to take action, right? Implement some of these things in your law firm yourself. And you see, before I started the webinar, I was faced with two options. I could either just host this lecture showcase all of the solutions, and that's it. Or actually, I could take a more active role in helping your law firm and helping your professional success. And so I chose the second option. And so I think what I've shown you so far is valuable, right? And you believe it can add value to law firm, you'll be very interested and excited about what I'm offering to you next. Now, we'll be offering consultations for law firms with more than 10 staff members. We'll be offering to fully streamline your practice. Now, the reason that we are only working with mid-sized and larger law firms is because we only have the capacity, our team only has the capacity to take on 2 new law firm clients every month. And we are fully booked up until April. And so if you qualify, you can book a consultation call with our team right now by following the link that Elisa just sent in the chat and also scanning this QR code. Now, as promised as well in the beginning, if you send the code word Swans intake to hello@swans.co, you'll get the recording of the webinar that you can review in your own time. And also you'll get that intake worksheet, which you can already start applying in your law firm, walk through it with your team, and start understanding where can you improve your intake process and your customer experience. Now, I hope that what I've shared with you in this webinar was helpful. I hope that it has opened up your mind to the different possibilities that there are in terms of automation. Dana, thank you very much as well for agreeing to showcase this process that we've built out for you, and as well helping on this webinar, explaining your experience so far. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer those personalized questions right now. Tom is asking, I assume you'll email the consultation link as well? Yes, we'll also email the consultation link so you can book a call. Let me know if you have any specific questions.
More than glad to answer any questions about my experience as well from the attorney side of things.
The email is hello@swans.co without the M, correct? Automated intake with Wealth Counsel. So Wealth Counsel is a bit of a special software. So there are some native integrations that it has. So for example, with Decision Vault, with ClearManage. Now, what Wealth Counsel provides in terms of automation capabilities is the ability to create the kind of the initial contact in the system, any relationships that it has. So for example, like spouse, former spouse, etc. And also the actual matter inside of Wealth Counsel. In terms of actually answering the questions inside of Wealth Counsel questionnaires, it is not possible to automate that. Wealth Counsel simply doesn't provide the technical capability on the back end to be able to automate those things. So there is no technical way, unfortunately, to automate that. If you would want to automate your documents, what is possible is utilizing a more open system, such as Gavel, Documentero, there are a few others, and building that into your current workflow so that you have a quicker, let's say, quicker production of those documents. The only possibility with Wealth Counsel, again, is just creating those initial set of fields in terms of the contact and the matter, and then passing through the whole Wealth Counsel questionnaires before. Areola, yes, I will be able to send out the worksheet and the video as well.
Martin, if you don't mind, if I can just jump in
Yeah,
and go back to something that you talked about towards the end about the personal touch aspect of this. I love technology and I would automate everything in my life if I could. But the reality is in most of the practice areas, but especially in estate planning, the personal touch is extremely important. And I have for years been really nervous about removing that from my practice. But now we do have the ability to focus more of our time and resources on the personal touch, and we've built in all these places that remind staff to do that. But one thing that I think is important is we actually had, we just had no touch to these clients after they had met with us or reached out to us. And so I think receiving an email reminding them that we're still there is better than hearing nothing at all from us. And then depending on the demographics of who you're talking to and what your practice is like and individual people, some people prefer to be emailed. They don't want to be called. Some people want to be called. And it is completely possible to automate a lot of areas of your practice based on your clientele, based on your staffing capabilities and what you feel is best for your practice, and still incorporate that personal communication. And our clients seem to like that we have a little bit of both, that there are people who can call and reach out and email them who are real people, not just automations, but also that for the people who prefer not to be called, that they're able to get this process underway without being on the phone with us or manually filling out forms that they have to scan and email. And finding that balance has taken a little while, but understanding the options and the possibilities with someone who will actually tell you for your practice what there is was extremely valuable for us.
No, absolutely. And in terms of as well, like just keeping the client updated, this only applies to the intake side of things. A lot of times as well during the service delivery, the client kind of like is left a bit in the dark, right, of what is going on. A lot of times in the service industry, the perception of the value that you create for the client is not so much based on the actual output of your work per se, but on the perception of that output, right? And so let's say if you even have prepared an amazing set of documents, but you email them 3 weeks later and they have spent those 3 weeks thinking like and having anxiety about like what's going to happen next, the perception of that value will be much lower compared to you sending out that document, let's say 5 weeks from now, but then sending them a reminder every few days or every week and notifying them about new progress that's being made on their case and how are things progressing, especially in some of those areas where the process can be a bit more anxious, right? A bit more stressful, sorry, for the client, such as losing their job, losing a loved one, etc. Let me see the Q&A. I will stop the share as well. I can check the Q&A. What are the pros and cons of Calendly as compared to using Lomatics calendar? That's a great question, Paul. I actually recorded a full Lomatics review that you can check out on our channel. Just feel free to search up my name on YouTube, where I cover that in detail. But primarily, Calendly provides a bit more flexibility in terms of how you can set up some of these more advanced structures in terms of, for example, having a round robin, right? If you have multiple attorneys being booked through the same calendar, Calendly actually allows you to be able to do that. Lomatics is not that great in that. And also as well, like the user experience is well a bit different. Now, for most of cases, I believe that Lomatics would work. Like now, if you have some of these again more advanced scenarios, then potentially choosing Calendly is the right option. The question is then like, how do you integrate it, right? You can achieve so with Zapier or Make.com, some of these automation platforms that would allow you to do that. Have you ever worked with real estate law firms and or automations in Qualia? Yes, actually, I'm now working with one of the law firm that is actually transitioning to Qualia from another software, eClosing, and assisting them as well in this process. All right, I'll give it 1 more minute. For certain consultation, we charge a fee. Is it possible to add a fee? Absolutely. It's possible to add a fee option in Calendly. You're able to charge that through either PayPal or Stripe.com. And essentially the client will be, or the PNC will be asked as soon as on the same kind of booking form, right? They'll be also asked to make the payment. Lomatics also has that option, so both of those will work. If you want again to check out kind of the full review of Lomatics, I do have a video, like an hour and a half video on my channel, covering all of those options over there. Thank you very much for everybody who has attended, for spending this time with us today. I hope this was valuable. Dana, again, thank you so much for as well attending and sharing your experience with the audience.
I'm glad for the opportunity and appreciate how much you've helped my firm. So.
All right, fantastic. Well, everybody, have a great week, rest of the week, and a great rest of the day. And I hope we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.